Welcome to the Mike Francesa podcast on the Bet Rivers Network. It's brought to you by Casamigos Tequila. Casamigos Tequila is brought to you by those who drink it. We're coming up on probably as busy a week as we have in the whole sports year. You could have a couple of weeks in October where you have college football, might have a big game, and a big NFL game, and the World Series. But this is an enormous week, especially here in New York. We have the Knicks tonight, Thursday, Sunday. We have the Rangers Tuesday, Friday, Sunday. We have the NFL draft, which I think is probably the most intriguing draft, and we'll do a lot on the draft this week. Thursday, Friday, and Saturday. Right now, Giants picking 6, Jets picking 10. A lot of intrigue with the quarterbacks. Daniels trying to look like push his way negatively out of a Washington situation at 2. Even the lowering of the odds of McCarthy going all the way to 2 now, where he has gone from being considered outrageous at 2 to now a lot of people think he might go 2 because Daniels is trying to push himself away from Washington. He doesn't want to be drafted by Washington. He's made that very clear. Not that Washington's going to agree with that, and they don't have to, but we've seen quarterbacks do that before with negativity and with some juxtapositioning. So we'll see what happens. There's 3 or 4 teams led by the Vikings who are desperately looking to trade up for quarterbacks. New England has made it clear they will trade their pick. Arizona is possible for a trade. So is the Chargers possible for a trade. You have the whole specter of Harrison. Does he break the quarterback logjam, or does it go 1, 2, 3, 4 quarterbacks before he goes off the board and he starts to run a wide receiver? So there's so much going on there. Let me get to a couple of things. It's a busy day. I got a lot of stuff to get to. So let me start with the NBA. Game 1s, all 8 won by the home team, most of them in one-sided fashion. Some star players didn't play. Freak didn't play. Leonard didn't play. Embiid got hurt, came back. He's going to play game 2 tonight. Very few close games. Oklahoma City had a close games on its hands last night, won by 2. But the home team won all 8 games in the first go-round, the first game 1s of all the series. Now, Knicks tonight, game 2 at the Garden. We did a post, Nick won, so if you heard that, you know my thoughts. I'll go over a couple things here in case you didn't hear it. Clearly, game 1 was about the Knicks and getting tremendous performance from the bench and getting incredible performance off the backboards and getting wonderful performances from Hart, Robinson, and McBride. Hart with his all-around game and his energy and those 3 dagger threes he hit. Robinson with his extended minutes, his defense, and his incredible rebounding. And McBride, who comes off the bench to lead a Knick bench contingent, which outscored Philly 42-7 off the bench. I mean, the Knicks beat him up in fast break points, beat him up in second chance points, beat him up on the backboard. The Knicks got 23 offensive rebounds. It was the second best offensive rebounding game in the NBA in the entire season. That's how effective it was. And Philly made it very clear. Our adjustment is one thing, on the backboards. We're not even thinking about anything else on the backboards. We got to give it another effort. We might have to play a bigger lineup. How that goes, we'll see. The one thing they did very well, and remember, Philly could have won this game easy. The one thing they did really well is they did a great job on Brunson, which I talked about with you last week. They were going to go with size. They were going to go with numbers, and they did a great job against him. He had a bad game for him. 22 points, 1 million shots, 5 turnovers, and they won around him. Dante on the bench a lot of the game because he didn't have his shot. And I talked to you about him being the Knicks' number 2 scorer, but what about the games when he's off? Well, you saw what happened. They went to McBride, and they stayed with McBride. McBride logged 28 minutes in that game. And if I had told you early in the season McBride was going to be a guy who was going to score 21 points in 28 minutes for the Knicks in the playoffs, you would have looked at me like I was crazy. But that's how things change, and give Tibbs the credit for having faith in these guys and also for the development of these players. That was a very strange game in a couple of reasons. Every quarter was won by one team in double digits. Sixers won the first quarter with Embiid hot by 9, not 10. They got a late bug, so it was 9. Then Knicks won the second quarter by 21. Sixers won the third quarter by 15. Knicks won the fourth quarter by 10. Very strange game in that regard. So what do you see in game 2? Well, everything for Philly centers on Embiid. Embiid he settled for jumpers. He didn't have his legs, and he front rimmed a lot of shots. I expect him to go to the basket more, get more fouls, and take his shot closer to the hoop. I expect that to be the case in game 2. He did play 36 minutes in game 1. If they can get 36 minutes out of him, they'll be ecstatic. And Philly was much better when he's on the floor than when he's off the floor. Much better. They have to balance the floor and keep the Knicks from getting fast break baskets, which the Knicks did in the first half, didn't much in the second half. But the Knicks killed them with second chance points. They got offensive rebound after offensive rebound, and they made every dagger 3. And give Brunson credit, because when the game was on the line, he didn't force his shot. When they ran the defense to him, he gave the ball to Hart, and he made a 3. He gave the ball to OG, and he made a 3. He gave the ball again to Hart, and he made a 3. That was big. He didn't say, I have to do this myself. He didn't act that way. And I'm sure he's not thrilled about going into the playoffs and having a real substandard game. I mean, this is a guy who's been averaging 31 points since Randall went out and averaging close to 40 points in his last 8 games. He scored 22 points on 26 shots. So Philly's ecstatic the way they play Brunson. They love what they got out of Maxey. They love what they got out of Lowry. They went in and they used the old Riley adage, no rebounds, no rings. Knicks got 55 rebounds in the game, 23 offensive rebounds. That they outscored them 26-8 second chance points, 26-8. Can't win in the playoffs that way. No rebounds, no rings. That's all there is to it. This is going to be a very competitive series. Philly could have easily won that game. Knicks look at some things they did really badly, but they got to understand they got some sensational performances. Hart with 22 and 13. McBride with 21 points. Bogdanovich made some big baskets. Robinson gave them a tremendous game. And it overcame that Brunson had a bad game, overcame that Dante had a bad game. Now, again, you're going to see them tighten up their defense, especially in terms of penetration. If Maxey was one of the best penetrating guards in the league, and is just a bona fide scorer. Let's see what kind of shape Embiid's in. That's really the key for Philly. If Philly doesn't get a big game out of Embiid, I don't see them winning any games in the series. If he goes out a game and he can't play, it's over. So I really think, but with Embiid in the lineup, this is going to be a 7-game series. I really believe that. Now, it's funny. I didn't do anything on hockey because I hadn't really watched any hockey yet. I did play golf last week with a couple of my hockey guys that I rely on. And I'll just give you a couple of things they gave me before game 1. This is fair what they gave me before game 1. They told me the Rangers would have no trouble with Washington. They said Washington shouldn't even be in the playoffs. We know yesterday we saw that Washington statistically was the worst team to come into the playoffs since 1991. And in what was I thought, rather ho-hum game, and the Rangers went on to a rather comfortable win. This will be an easy series. They loved the Hurricanes. They thought that the Islanders had very little chance against the Hurricanes, and they thought the Hurricanes had a great chance to beat the Rangers. They also liked the Florida Panthers a lot. And in the West, they liked Edmonton a lot. They liked Edmonton a lot, yes. Now, As the playoffs go on, as the Knicks graduate from the series, which we all think they will, we'll do a little more on that. Now, a couple other things before I get to the baseball, and we will do a post-game Nick tonight after Game 2. You have 3 games in the NBA tonight. You have Magic and Cavs. I told you low-scoring game in Game 1, and I thought the Cavs would win. I think tonight again, low-scoring game in Game 2, and the Cavs will win. Knicks 7:30, TNT, and then Lakers and Nuggets. I don't see the Lakers winning a game in Denver. I just don't. I think they'll win a game or 2 in the series just because of who they have and who they are. But I don't think they'll win any games in Denver. And the series will probably be 5 games. And I don't see them winning any games in Denver. I don't see them winning tonight. So I think the 3 home team. I think the Knicks game could be close. Really could be close tonight. I wouldn't give you that. I think that one is as sound as the other 2. I think Cavaliers are going to win. And I think it's going to be a very strong defensive series for them. And I think the Lakers are not going to win in Denver. I think Denver's going to win. I mean, Denver pulled away late last game, but I think Denver's going to win. So you have 3 games there tonight. You know, I was watching Scottie Scheffler wrap it up this morning at the Heritage in South Carolina. So now he has won 4 of the last 5 weeks. The other week he was 1 putt from a playoff. He finished second, tied second. So in the last 5 weeks, he's had 4 wins. He was the first guy in 50 years to win the Players and turn around and win the Masters. He was the first guy since 1984 to turn around and win the Masters and then turn around and win the next week in South Carolina. What he's doing is just extraordinary. He is so far ahead right now of anybody else in the world. He won his 10th tournament of his career. He's won 4 of the last 5. He got to 50. He got to 10 wins faster than Tiger Woods. The only guy who got to 10 wins faster than him is Dennis Duval, if you remember, who came on like a comet across the sky and won everything in sight, was the number 1 player in the world, and then fell apart. Scheffler is playing such brilliant golf. Now they have the Wells Fargo in a couple of weeks, and then they have the PGA at Valhalla in Louisville. He's going to have a baby sometime in the next 2 weeks, his first. Is he going to practice? Is he going to get off his practice schedule? Will he play before Valhalla? Will he come to Valhalla off not playing? How he's going to play in May based after the baby's born the next 10 days, who knows? It's going to be very interesting to watch. But right now you have Scheffler dominating, and I don't talk much about women's sports because I don't follow women's sports very much. I have to admit, you want to knock me for that, go ahead. But Nelly Korda has won 5 tournaments in a row now. I actually watched her win yesterday in the Chevron a little bit, skipping around. And what a beautiful swing she has. And she's the 3rd player ever to win 5 straight women's tournaments. The other 2 are legends. Nancy Lopez, who was a stone legend, and Annika, who was a incredible legend. And now Nelly Korda has won 5 straight, yesterday a major, 5 straight wins on the women's tour. So here you have 2 players in golf in a sport where if you win twice in a year, you had a really good year. If you win a tournament and a major, you had a great year. They've each won a major in their string, and Scheffler's won 4 of the last 5, and Nelly's won 5 in a row. Incredible dominance. The other thing I wanted to mention was Caitlin Clark. You know, I didn't pay much attention. I didn't even mention the draft in the WNBA because I have no interest in the WNBA. I know that a lot of people watch the draft because of Caitlin Clark, and she's on the Indiana team. Okay. And everyone was talking about how little money she made. Well, she just signed a deal with Nike, which I heard she signed an 8-year deal with Nike. I'm saying, wow, she just got rich. She didn't get rich. She got a nice pop, but I thought it would be more. But she got $28 million. Now I hope she's getting something based on each unit sold, because I don't know about you, but I think with her popularity, which is to the moon, she is going to sell, especially little girls who dream of being Caitlin Clark and dream of playing basketball as they grow up. They no longer have to wear a male star's shoe. They can now wear Caitlin Clark's shoe. I think it's going to sell like hotcakes, especially if it's a good-looking shoe. Now, I haven't seen it yet because they haven't developed it yet. But, I mean, you know what she reminds me of? And this is going to bring up a tender subject. It really is, because there's going to be a tinge of race involved here. And no one wants to talk about it, but it's there. The WNBA players, especially the veteran ones, who are real good and are African-American, think she gets too much attention, and they're down on her. Some have made comments. They also people make comments about that she didn't win a championship, so she's not great. It reminds me of what went on with Pete Maravich. You know, Pete Maravich who put on a show in college, and a lot of people didn't like Pete's show. They thought it was more about artistry and showmanship and scoring than it was about winning, and they weren't wrong. And the biggest guy who blistered over it was John Wooden. And LSU played UCLA, and UCLA embarrassed them. And Maravich had 1 million turnovers and a bad game. And Wooden was like, that's a clown act. He did not like it. He did not like me basketball. He did not like the showiness of it. He did not like the bad shots. He did not like any of it. And he made it very clear he didn't like it. At UCLA, even if you were Bill Walton or Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, or Lou Alcindor, and were the best player in the world, you didn't act like it. And I noticed the same kind. And when he went into the NBA, even on his own team, he went into a very good team. And the first thing that happened was Jumpin' Joe Cardwell, who was a really good player, and he went into a very good team that was essentially a black nucleus, which means nothing in the NBA. And I wouldn't even notice it except one thing. Maravich went in there, and the first thing Joe Cardwell did was jump to the ABA, because he was upset about what he was getting paid and what Maravich was getting paid. There was great jealousy towards Maravich and almost anger. And I sensed some of that with Caitlin Clark, that some of the veteran star WNBA players feel that she's not as good as everyone's making out to be, that she is this media creation, and part of it being that, yes, she's white. So it's going to be very interesting to see how she's treated and received. And I think she's going to have some tough times, because these veteran players who are grizzled, tough veteran pros are going to give the rookie a hard time. I don't think there's any question about that. They gave Maravich a real hard time. And Caitlin Clark's not the show that Pete Maravich was, with his floppy hair and his floppy socks and his globetrotter moves. He wasn't. And Maravich was a brilliant scorer. I mean, I saw him score 61 points against the Knicks, against Walt Frazier. Maravich had great talent, but in college, he averaged 44 points a game without the 3-point shot. If he had the 3-point shot, he would average 65 points a game, because so many of his shots were from downtown. I mean, I saw him play a game here, and they triple teamed him, and he kept shooting. And that's the way they played. He made these insane passes. He was a show in himself, but he also was a wonderful talent, as is Caitlin Clark. But I sense that there is now a lot of jealousy towards her that she's going to have to deal with. Hey, it's part of being very successful. Human beings are very jealous, very territorial towards their sports, and very jealous. And they're going to make her earn her stripes. And she's going to have to earn her stripes. And we'll see if she's good enough to earn her stripes. You heard some of the same stuff with Larry Bird, but Larry Bird was that good. Anyone who was saying Larry Bird wasn't one of the great players was just sour grapes, because you're just a fool. He was that good. And Caitlin Clark didn't win a championship, but she took her team on its back a very long way, both years. And she ran into a better team and a much bigger team, and they beat her. I think the shoe, now you got one side of people saying, oh, she should be making a lot more money than she's making, and the other side saying, hey, why are we giving her everything? So she can't win. But she now signs a Nike deal, and I would think, I don't know who her representation is, but I would hope that there's a bump for each set of sneakers sold, because I got a feeling they're going to sell really well. I would think they would really, really sell. Because I don't think, now maybe I'm wrong and I wasn't aware of it, do the women have a pair of sneakers with a female star on the sneaker already? If they do, I don't even know what the sneaker is. It just shows you how it's been badly marketed. So I don't even know if that's even a factor. And the WNBA has been a disaster. I mean, let's be honest. All it has been, if I was an NBA owner, I wouldn't want any part of it. It has done nothing but lose money. It has no fan base. Is she going to give it a fan base by herself? I don't know if she can do that, especially in Indiana. People, they don't draw. That's all there is to it. You got to be honest. Now, she was an incredible drawing card. She's drawing millions and millions and millions of people to the games. Her championship game drew 19 million fans. That's insane. That's more than watched any World Series game last year. That's more than watched any NBA final game last year. She is a bona fide magnet. Does she remain one inside the WNBA? I don't know. I was on a golf course and people said to me, did you watch that women's semifinal? And I say, I watched the second half of the semifinal game and I watched the final game. I had never watched a women's basketball game before in my life. And I used to love Cheryl Miller. I liked her personally. Always got along with her and Reggie. Her game was brilliant. I thought she was, everything that you could want in a star. But I never watched them play. Same thing. I had never watched women's basketball. I'm playing golf the other day, and she came up in the conversation, and 3 to 4 guys playing golf had watched her in the semifinals. That's insane. These are men watching her play. That's how big she became. Now let's see if she can take that bigness forward and build a league around it. I don't know that she can do that. They should be happy because her success will be their success. But there's a lot of jealousy. There's no question. And it's human nature. That's all there is to it. Mets win 2 out of 3 in L.A., which, hey, I know they got beat badly yesterday, but hey, they won 2 out of 3 against the Dodgers. They go out there. They're doing well. They got 3 in San Francisco before they come home. Give them credit. And one thing that I thought would happen this year, and I argued with a couple of people about, was a lot of people thought Marte was through. I thought Marte would play well this year, and he's gotten off to a good start. Let's see if he continues, because he's a big guy for them if he, can continue what he's doing right now, because he gives them a real lift. He helps them a lot. But give the Mets credit with what they've done. You have to be if you're the Mets, you have to be very, very happy with what they've done. I mean, to go out there, first of all, after an 0-5 start, to get to 12-9. I mean, they were 12-8, I understand, but and overcome that, to get the pitching they've had, and they've done it without Nemo doing much and without Lindor really doing anything. And they've gotten it from a lot of guys in the bottom of the order. Bader's got a bunch of big hits. Beatty's gotten some big hits, and they've gotten big hits from a bunch of different people. When they're at full strength again, which may be a little while still, but when they're at full strength again, the lineup's not that bad right now. Taylor's done well too. I went to the game. I told you, I took Harrison to a spring training game, and Taylor was in the lineup, and I didn't even realize Taylor was on the Mets. And that day he played, and he got a couple of hits, and I said, this guy could probably help. He'd probably be a good guy to have as a jack of all trades kind of guy for them. And he's really come up with some big hits so far. He's done a good job. Guys like that can make a difference. Plus, they've gotten pitching from a lot of places you didn't expect it. So you got to be very, very happy with what they've done so far. You really do. As far as the Yankees, hey, you get through April, you've already won 15 games. It's a nice start. You're 15-7. The Orioles are going to be good. You know that. The Orioles are a team that's going to be there every step of the way. I don't think there's any question. And Tampa's going to be legitimate. They always are. I mean, they're always there. They're always competitive. They'll add pieces. They'll do different things. And the Blue Jays aren't bad either. So there's teams there. There's no question. Yankees don't have an enormous edge on these teams. So, but they're off to a good start. Yes, I know you're waiting for Judge to break out. He'll break out. The one thing that has been surprising is not the strikeouts, because he strikes out a lot anyway. I don't worry about that. A lot of sluggers strike out, so I don't worry about that. Is that, with very few exceptions, he has had a lot of opportunities to knock in runs, and he hasn't. And with Soto in front of him, who's going to have, he's going to be on base 4 out of 10 times all year. He's going to have traffic in front of him. He's going to have opportunities. I know I've heard of people saying, hey, how about they pull a Mantle Maris and I don't, me, I don't compare anybody to Mantle. So, but, they flip-flop Mantle and Maris when Maris wasn't going well. That they should not flip-flop Soto and Judge. That would be a mistake. To have Judge behind Soto is going to get Soto, even though he's so selective and he's going to walk, it's going to still get him a lot of pitches to hit. And you're better off with it that way, because Soto's approach is to take what is given to him and get on base. The way he goes to the plate and how he attacks the game, he should be in front of Judge, not behind. Is it a big advantage being in front of Judge for Soto? Should be. Was it a big advantage for Maris being in front of Mantle? Absolutely. So nothing but fastball. But Mantle was the most feared player in baseball by such a wide margin. Not that Judge isn't, but Judge isn't. Listen, to me, nobody's Mantle. So, but that's how feared Mantle was then. But yes, it got Maris going, and he wound up having a phenomenal year, as did Mantle. But there's a lot of times when Mantle's just not going to get anything hit. If they had a base over, Mantle was getting a walk. That's all there is to it. He got walked his whole career. And he wasn't looking to walk. He was looking to swing. I mean, he would expand. He would swing to swing, as we know. In those days, by his standards, by today's standards, he didn't strike out a lot. Now these guys strike out 180 times. He never struck out 180 times. Remember, when he was in his prime, he was batting 350. 350, 360. A normal year was 320. So he was not going to strike out. He would strike out because he swung so hard, and he'd strike out 100 times. But he wouldn't strike out 190 times. I mean, I don't know what, I usually know all the male numbers. I don't know what was the all-time high for his strikeouts. Now, remember, he missed games a lot of years, too, because he was hurt a lot. But if you look, a lot of years he was able to get into the 140s in games. He rarely got into the 150s in games, but he did get into the 140s. I would say that his all-time high was somewhere around 130 strikeouts, but I don't know that. I have to say, I have to look, to be honest. And I pretty much know his whole statistical setup by heart because I've looked at it so many times. I'm going to say 130, but I don't even know if it's that high. Let's see. The highest strikeout, he led the league in strikeouts 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 times. His high strikeout ever was 126. And in that year, he hit 285, didn't hit 300. In 56, he struck out 99 times. He hit 353 with a 464 on base percentage and a 705 slugging. He led the major leagues in runs scored, home runs, RBIs, on base percentage, batting average, and slugging percentage, and OPS. He didn't lead one league, he led both leagues in every statistic. Here's his strikeouts: 74, 111, 90, 107, 99, 97, 75, 102, 120, 126, 125, 112, 78, 102, 76, 76, 113, 97. He struck out 1,710 times, which was the all-time record at the time. He walked more than he struck out. Walked 1,733 times, struck out 1,710 times. And his lifetime on-base percentage was 421. His lifetime OPS was 977, which is phenomenal. Not 0.977. And if you take out his last 4 years, now his low ever was almost 800. He never, because even his last year, he still hit 18 home runs in 400 at-bats. So he still always had power. And he always got walks. So in his last year, he walked 106 times. Last year, when he was through and hit 236, he still walked 106 times because they were always afraid of him. Even when he was old, they were afraid of him because he still had home runs because he had immense power. Now, this isn't all about him, but my point is, I don't worry about Judge's strikeouts, but I would not flip-flop them the way they flip-flopped Maris and Mantle in 61. I think Soto belongs in front of Judge because I've heard people bringing this up. Hey, how about getting Judge started, put Soto behind him? I think Soto would be very upset about that. I don't think he'd like it. And I think it's the wrong approach to have the way they attack the game. You're going to have to ask Stanton when Stanton's on, he is very, very good protection for Judge. When he's not on, they're not going to give Judge anything to hit. That's all there is to it. Because if it's a guy who has heat, who can get in Stanton's kitchen, well, then he doesn't have to pitch to Judge because he can strike Stanton out. Because if you can throw really hard, you can get the ball in on Stanton now and strike him out. He doesn't hit the best fastball anymore. That's something that's gone. But if you're mediocre or you hang a pitch, well, you might find it 500 feet away. I mean, he clearly, and if you watch Yankee games, you know this, when he hits the ball soundly, he hits it as hard as anybody in baseball. The ball comes off his bat like few other players. I mean, he hits ground balls that are scary. You know who did that? I'll give you guys who did that. Mantle did that from the right side. He hit, because he uppercutted the ball on the left side. He very rarely hit hard ground balls. But right-handed, he hit these peas that just was scary with the infielders. Two other guys that I remember who were just Harmon Killebrew. When you were the third baseman, you didn't want to be, he was slow, so he didn't have to play in, and he wasn't going to bunt. But thank God, because he hit these peas. And then Willie McCovey. Willie McCovey was scary. When he'd hit these line drives, you couldn't even see them. That's how strong he was. But I would leave Judge. The point of this is I would leave Judge where he is He will be fine. I don't have the least bit of inkling of a worry about Judge. And I don't buy that he's upset about all the love for Soto. I don't buy that. He knew what was coming. And I think he's comfortable, unless I'm really wrong and I'm misjudging Judge by a lot. I think Judge is comfortable in his skin and knows his position with the Yankees, and the Yankee fans is very secure. I don't think he worries about that. Now, did Jeter chafe a little bit when A-Rod came? Yes, because remember, there was a lot of talk, and everyone in the American League thought that A-Rod was a better shortstop than Jeter. But we all knew Jeter was going to keep that position, but there was a little chafing that went on there because they played the same position. And A-Rod and he were always very competitive, even though they were very different players. Jeter had a lot of intangibles. A-Rod, as an offensive force, was in a different league than Jeter. I mean, in a different league than most players in the history of baseball. You know, a shortstop who could hit 60 home runs, play every day, get a Gold Glove, hit 300, and knock in 145, 50 runs. That's A-Rod. I mean, who could do that? You know, if A-Rod didn't take steroids, he'd be remembered as one of the greatest players who ever lived. But he cheated. So that goes by the boards. That's his own fault. Because I got to figure he would have been great anyway. And I think he probably was, but I think he finally figured, hey, these other guys are getting an edge. Let me get an edge. Probably an edge he didn't need to. But hey, that's a story for another day. But I think Judge is, I don't think this is Soto related. I really don't. I think he's just off to a bad start. He's had a habit of, you know, they're feeding him a lot of stuff, low and away, down but low. He always feels he's getting hurt on a low strike. He has a habit of chasing. And right now he's off because the other day he came up in a big spot and the guy missed with a breaking ball. And he put an absolute cookie up there. And Judge fouled it off. Normally that ball would have been 40 rows deep. Just shows you that he's off right now. It's been a really cold, miserable spring. I think that's part of Lindor's problem. Although he does severely uppercut the ball left-handed. I think part of it, though, is it's been really, hey, I hate playing golf in the cold. And back in the days when I was a kid, even playing in high school or playing when I did play, I hated playing baseball in cold weather. Baseball's not conducive to cold weather, and hitting stinks in the cold weather. So we haven't even, and yesterday was cold. I went for a walk with my wife yesterday. It was cold. For a late April day, it was cold. Cold wind, it was cold. I was on a golf course twice last week. Once it was freezing. I was wearing a wool hat. I mean, late April, wearing a wool hat, you don't want to do that. Same thing playing baseball. It's just let these guys get some good weather, and I think they'll be fine. And I'm going to tell you right now, I hear a lot of people killing Torres. I'm not worried about Torres. Leave him alone. He'll be fine. He will be fine. He will not be a reason for you to worry. We've gotten a good year out of Cabrera. That's overcome the loss so far of LeMahieu. You've gotten a good start out of Volpe, although I know he's come back to the pack and struck out a little bit more lately. He had the 4-game one up in Toronto. Hey, it's going to happen. His approach is better. Not perfect now. He's not going to hit 290. He might hit 250 this year. But as long as he sees more walks and uses the right side more than he did, he's learning. He's going to get better incrementally. Don't worry about him. And he doesn't carry it into the field no matter what he does offensively. So that's a very good sign. So I'm not worried about him. I'm a little worried about Rizzo. I've made that to you clear before. I'd be worried about LeMahieu. It's one thing after another now. And I think Stanton has about as many good days as bad days left in him for this year. I think he has about as many bad as good. I don't think there's one more than the other. I don't think it's great, but I don't think it's terrible. And there's some games he'll wreck. He has the ability to wreck the game with any at bat. And that is still something that a lot of guys don't have. They really don't. So the Yankees are going to finish up this homestand with the A's, which, hey, now the A's are not as pitiful as they were last year, but they're still the A's. So, I mean, this should be a good couple of days. They should be able to pad their record a little bit before they hit the road. And the Mets have 3 in San Francisco after they've gotten through the Braves, and the Braves obviously are doing very well right now. They've gotten through the Braves and gotten through the Dodgers on the road. And when they were 0-5 and I did a podcast, I was like, hey, I am really worried about this because this could be 6-20. And 6-20, you're not taking out of with their team. You watch the Marlins aren't going to dig out of this all year. But they've done a nice job. They really have. They've gotten a lot of pitching performances from unknowns or from guys you didn't expect it from. And they've gotten some timely hitting. Some clutch hitting from guys. That has allowed them to put together a nice little streak. And winning 2 out of 3 in LA is nice. If they can get a game in San Francisco, just don't get swept in San Francisco. It was definitely a plus trip. If they went 2 out of 3 here in San Francisco, it would be, hey, it'd be a great trip. If they get a game in San Francisco, you go 3-3 out there, that's fine. You can't, hey, that's wonderful for them. Come home, play the Cardinals, and away you go. You're almost May. I'm hoping or thinking that the weather should start to change, although you've learned around here there is no spring. You go right to summer. You go right to 75, 80, and that's it. There's no spring anymore. Our April days are as cold as our February days. And then our May days are like July days. I mean, that's just the way it is. We just don't have any spring. We still have a fall. We have mild winters. We have nice summers, but we don't have any spring. March and April are lousy months here. I went to Florida for 25 days in February. And I had great weather. They had the worst December and January ever. Terrible. Rainy, 50 degrees, awful. I mean, awful. I got there day after the Super Bowl. I went down for 25 days. I got the most beautiful weather every day. Perfect. 75, sunny. I didn't get any rain. Didn't get any cold. Beautiful weather. It's windy sometimes out on the golf course there in Florida in the afternoon. That's the one thing you got to live with in February and March. It's windy. Like spring training games are always windy, and the golf course is windy. But it's something you live with. It's sunny. It's beautiful. It's just windy. But when I came back in March, I figured, hey, 2 weeks after the Big East, I should be able to get out and start playing golf. The first time I played golf was this past Wednesday. Either I was busy on the 1 or 2 nice days there were, or every time I went to play, it was 35 and 40 degrees. I just kept saying, no way. 40 degrees with 50-mile-an-hour wind, I'm not playing. It's not enjoyable. So I played Wednesday. It was freezing. I played Friday. I thought it was going to be cold. It wasn't that bad until the last couple of holes because the wind picked up, but it wasn't terrible. But we're still waiting for some decent weather. There was one day 2 weeks ago on a Monday where it was beautiful. It was like 78 degrees or 80 degrees, but that was one day. So the point is, you have to come up here from spring training, from being in Florida for 2 months, from being in warm weather all winter, and you're a baseball player, and you come up here, and the weather's awful. It's not conducive to hitting. So some people hitting it, but a lot of guys don't. Don't consider them done until you've seen them play through May and June. Don't consider them where we have to make a change because they got off to a bad April or a lousy first 5 weeks. Let the weather change first. Let's see some good weather and then take a look at these guys and see how things pick up. Like I said, we have a busy week. We'll be doing stuff every day. We'll have a podcast for you tonight after Knick Game 2. We will have plenty of draft stuff. I am into this draft. It is as compelling and as interesting as a first 10 picks as I can remember since maybe when Eli and Archie and the Manning crew were manipulating Eli's draft. And I remember how crazy that was on Thursday and Friday, especially Friday night with all the rumors. I remember Ernie Corsi telling me, I can live with Eli, I can live with Roethlisberger. He was fine with either one of them. I can live with either one of them. And he loved to collect quarterbacks. Eli came to the Giants, and hey, you all know what happened. So, very busy week. We'll have stuff every day. Enjoy the Knick game tonight. We'll talk to you later.